Greetings! Today on my Focus RS I am doing audio upgrades from both Powerbass and Dynamat. Here we are then, two sets of the Powerbass factory upgrade speakers for the Focus RS, and obviously 2 packs means that we are doing front and rear both doors. So I'll just open one of these up and show you what you get inside. Okay, inside we get some cool like Powerbass stickers if that's what you're into. You get like instruction manuals, and then here they are, the 2 tweeters and the 2 speakers. So the little tweeters, I can pop that out with one hand, that would be handy. I mean, that feels real nice quality. You can see it says Powerbass on there, and yeah, direct replacement for what we have stock. So pop this off. You can see we have one of our speakers. And give me 2 seconds and I will get rid of this plastic bag. There we go. We get a little bag of like mounting hardware and whatnot. So just set that to the side. And then this is it then. This is our Powerbass speaker. So that's what it looks like on the rear. Flip it around. And it just looks really beautiful. It's got all the mounting points that we need to just go straight into the car, which is the attraction of this kit. I mean, you can get lots of different kits, but you need to use like adapters to get them to line up. Powerbass have been like just super duper cool in, you know, creating this system that you can just plug and play, drop straight in, and happy days, get a nice audio upgrade. The stock system gets a lot of flack for being a bit, I don't know, flat. And in general, just the speakers tend to be like the first thing that really should be changed out. So that's obviously what we are doing with this upgrade today. So while I am at the changing of speakers and I have the door cards and all off, I am going to do some soundproofing. So I have a bunch of Dynamat. I've got 2 of these which will cut in half each to give us 4 of these Dynamat Extreme. This was like a door speaker pack, so you cut that and you get like that amount of Dynamat Extreme per door. But then I also have a big sheet of this Dynamat Super Light, which I'll chop that into 4, and then I can use that to fill in any spaces that I want to that we haven't managed to get with the Extreme. So then essentially the combination of our soundproofing plus our awesome upgraded Powerbass speakers should give us a really nice, easy, OEM looking audio upgrade. And it shouldn't be too much hassle, it shouldn't be too difficult, and that will be sweet. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay then, gonna start with the rear doors. So, I am here, I am sitting in the back. Essentially, it's gonna be a similar kind of thing, front and back. We just need to get the door card off first. So, there's a few steps in order to do that. And the first step here is there's a little cap under here. It's maybe hard to see, it's literally just a little plastic cap. So, we need to get something just in here at the side and then like pry that out. If you can do it with something plastic, then obviously that's better because you're less likely to damage anything around here, which of course is plastic. If you don't have anything like this is quite a small, very thin trim tool, then I guess you can use a flathead screwdriver. So with that loosened, then that should pop out. There we go. So that's all that is, just a tiny little plastic cap. And once we do that, that reveals a Torx screw. Okay, removing this screw requires a T25 Torx. Next, we are going to get this handle trim. Now this, we're going to have to use like a trim tool, and there's a bunch of plastic clips essentially come up and out, but not all the way of course, because we do have the electrical connection for the window here. So you may have seen there 2 trim tools, getting them sort of squeezed in and then just upward force, and it just kind of pops eventually. So if I carefully sort of flip this around, you can see there is our electrical connection that we need to remove. So on this there is a little tab, so we just push that in and out it pops. And once we get that out of the way, that reveals 2 more T25 Torx screws, one here and one down here. So we'll go ahead and remove those now. Okay, now we are ready to essentially yank the door card off. So there's like these big clips that kind of go all the way around, so we just kind of need to, you know, give it a bit and it should eventually pop off. So yeah, that wasn't too bad. Really, it was just a case of getting a decent grip and then giving it a good sort of sharp yank, and the clips, they just came out. You can see they're those big white things. So first thing we need to do is disconnect our tweeter in here. So you can see that this is the cable for it, and it goes right here. Just push down the little tab, and that pops out. And the last thing that we need to disconnect before we can just get rid of this door card for now is the latch. So you can see it on this side, you can see it on that side. So what we need to do, there's a couple of little plastic tabs. We need to push them in, and that allows us to pop that out, pop it through. Just like that, we have our door card out. Alright, next thing that we can do then is to get this speaker out, the stock speaker. So we do need to disconnect. We do need to disconnect it up here, so it's like a little tab that we have to push in. Once again, this one is a little bit stiffer looking than the others, but essentially do the same thing. We just push it in and then pull it upwards. You can hear it clicking back in because it's quite stiff. There we go. So yeah, it's definitely stiffer than these little ones, but just a little bit of pushing, a little bit of pulling, and it comes right out. Okay, now all we need to do is remove these screws here, and these require a 7mm socket. Okay, there is then a little like plastic thing that's also like, I guess, locating it into the door. So if we just give that a little bit of a yank, it's just that plastic thing right there on the edge. Okay, in here at the door card then, we need to get the tweeter out of the door card. So it's kind of encased in this plastic thing, which, you know, isn't like super duper tight in here, I guess, but it is something that we need to like clip out first. So there are like little plastic tabs, 1, 2, 1 right here, and 4. So we need to essentially push them in, and then this should just like pop out the front of the door card here. Okay, so now essentially what I was doing, I pushed them in and then I applied a bit of force like downwards, and now it should, there we go, lift right out. Okay then, so with our stock tweeter out, we actually need to separate the little grill thing on top there from the stock tweeter setup, and then like transplant our new Powerbass tweeter inside there. Now, the thing about that is, I don't know if you can see there at the side, there's like that sort of, it's like a grey like gunk, so it's essentially like stuck together. So I'm going to need to use a blade just to run that along the gunky bits in order to allow us to separate the tweeter from the grill. Okay then, so now hopefully I have separated that enough and we can get this kind of separated and removed. There we go. So essentially loosening it just at, there's like a couple of little grooves. How easy is it for you to see? There's a couple of little grooves that are kind of holding it in. Popping it off one side allows you to get it off. At this stage then, now that we've got that removed, we can do a little side-by-side comparison. So obviously the Powerbass on the right, the stock on the left, and obviously they are a similar size and shape because they have to be in order to fit into the factory fixings. The Powerbass is, even without all of the gubbins here, the Powerbass is still slightly heavier, so it's a nice sort of reassuring weight to it. Obviously the stock tweeter has all of its bits and bobs and its connection and all on there, whereas the Powerbass has the wires coming off, and then we get like a little connector and we have to sort of put it together ourselves. Okay, then clicking our tweeter into our little grill. So on the grill there is a number of little fixing points. So we have, let me just see, so we have these little rectangular holes, then we also have a little locating slot just right on the top here. Whenever you look at the Powerbass tweeter, you can see that there are like a couple of different little notches, but then there's also like a lip on here that goes around, like not all the way but a lot of the way, and the reason for that is that this can fit like multiple different vehicles. We want to line one of these little prong sticky outy things with this notch right here, and the specific one that we want to do it with, if I do it into this one, then you can see that this rectangle right here is going into this like no man's land bit, so we want it to be on this one, and then hopefully you can see that the lip is going to line up with us there, and if we flip it around it is going to line up here as well. So essentially what we need to do at this point is just push and it should click in. There we go, nice little click. So you can kind of see that our lip is going into these rectangle-y bits and it is together, so that's sweet. Okay, one thing now that we need to do before we can get this back into the door card is we need to connect up our little plug, which as you can see on the stock tweeter is like obviously just part of this little like setup that they have. Now the plug is marked positive and negative, but these wires are not labeled. So the way around that you want to go is, if you look on the stock setup, there's a little capacitor here which is going into this left hand side as you look at the plug, which is the positive side, and then nothing on the negative side. So then moving over to the Powerbass tweeter, you can see that there is a wire with nothing on it, and there's a wire with this thing right here that is in line. So this wire I'm going to connect up to positive, and this other wire I'm going to connect up to negative. And to connect them up, it's very simple. You just push these onto the contact on the plug. There we go then, that's the plug in place. These click in real nice, so it's a nice sturdy connection. So yes, this tweeter is now ready to go into the door card again. We just obviously have to feed the wire in through, and then you can see that there's a little like notch here, and that lines up with a blank part of the grill assembly, so we know that's where we have to aim for. So just carefully feed that in there, line it all up, and then we'll push down. There we go. Pretty tight fit, but it does clip right in there really nice and snug. So that's cool. We can also now do a little side-by-side comparison of the new Powerbass speaker and the stock speaker. So, I mean, yeah, just everything about the Powerbass is just nicer quality. Everything down to this foam is much more like sturdy versus this, which is like very, very flimsy. So that's pretty cool. Flip them around. Difference obviously as well in the electronics. This one says Fomoco, made in China. You know, obviously, you know, you pay for the Sony upgraded system and you just get these pretty crappy speakers. But anyways, so now we can jump back over to the door and continue. I think at this point, before we install our new speaker, it looks kind of grimy in there, so I'm going to give that a bit of a cleanup. Okay, out here then I have my 2 bits of Dynamat that I am going to put into this door. And so in behind here, like that's basically like the outside of the door. Just tapping it with my fingers, it's you can sort of almost hear the resonance. So this is quite an important spot to get some of our Dynamat onto. So for this bit, you know, if you reach up in here, it sort of goes on for a bit as well. So I'm going to use the extreme. I'm going to maybe chop it in half just so I can get it fitted in through this hole and get that on here first, and then I'll start cutting up the super light and get it in on as many of these like sort of flat-ish surfaces. So like here, also around the back here, we want to get it onto basically as many of these like exposed surfaces as we can to stop the resonance, the sort of vibrations interfering with our audio experience. So you just peel the back off and then it's like super duper sticky. You get it in place and then use like a little roller like this to just like flatten it down as much as possible. But yeah, you can see I've got a bit in there and I'm going to get a little bit in there, and yeah, then just crack on and see where we're at. Okay, so I've got those two bits in there and I've cut a nice section of the super light and put it there. Now I am going to have a little bit of a look under here. Now this like foam stuff is stuck down with some black sticky goop. Obviously we don't want to rip this, so just going real careful, just prying it slowly. Okay, so this reveals a bunch of flat surfaces that are going to be probably quite resonant, so I'm going to get some of my Dynamat on here. Alright, so there we go. I have utilized my entire allocation of my Dynamat for this door. It's not necessarily about touching every single surface, you know, like there's obviously like a couple of bits still exposed. It's more about getting like as good of a spread as possible, touching as many surfaces as possible to get as much of that rogue vibration to be absorbed, whilst also having a trade-off in terms of not adding too much weight to the door. So I've got it up here. I mean, there's stuff you can't necessarily see. I got it up there. I do have some on the other side of this. I've got it like in there. I even like didn't waste any of my offcuts. I mean, stuff you can't also see like around the back here, but like even like a couple of random offcuts, I just, you know, stuck them in there, you know, just because, why not? So at this point you can stick like the stock foamy thing back in place, and then we can get our speaker in. There we go, very, very simple, just screwing it into place. Now you do have to mount it, obviously, where the connector, where the plug and connector can meet, which in my case, I don't know if they're manufactured differently, but that does mean that the Powerbass logo is kind of upside down. Not that that matters once we get the door card back on, but it's a funny little quirk anyway. So yes, should just be a simple case then of lining this up and getting it pushed in. There we go, that's the connector all the way in. I just did it off camera because I needed all my hands, and it might be kind of difficult to see this little like square section in the black. Down in there, there is a little tab that goes into place once the connector's all the way in, so just look out for that. But yes, now we're ready for getting the door card back in place. Alright then, door card. I mean, in terms of reinstallation, it's going to be pretty much the exact opposite of removal. So we'll start with our handle, we'll get that fed in through there and clicked in. We'll then connect our electrical connection up for the tweeter, which is there. Then we do also need to note that this electrical connection needs to go through the middle here so that we can connect up the switches for the electric windows. But then apart from that, it's basically just lining up these holes that are dotted around with these big white clips and giving it a good old push and clicking it back in at this stage. Alright, now we can get our 3 Torx screws back in, so the 2 here and the 1 up there. Alright, now for our handle. So of course we want to connect our little electrical connection first, and then line it up, and then essentially all the clips are just sort of going down, so just, you know, pushing it down once it's lined up. And there is one thing that is like underneath here, It's pretty hard to show you, but this is like the bottom clip of the handle that needs to go in the middle of this hole, like right here. So just make sure of that. Give everything a good push downwards until it clicks, and then that will be the handle on. Last part then is a little plastic cap for in here, so just line it up and give it a little push. Pretty small little clip, so doesn't require any effort at all. So with that done then, that is the rear door done. So of course at this point I will go over to the other side and repeat the exact same process, and then we will start on the fronts. Okay, in the front then, the first thing that we want to do is remove the cover that is covering the tweeter. So we just sort of get a grip on it, and that pops out and off like so. So this bit that didn't come off we also need to remove. It uses one of those like annoyingly strong white clips, so we might have to go in from this side, just get our fingers in as far as possible, and then straight out. Yeah, you can actually see one of my wee clips is still in there, so I'll need to pop that out. I'll need a different trim tool for that. But yes, at this point we can disconnect the tweeter. So exactly the same as in the rear, just this little tab, and then the harness can be disconnected. So that's that little clip that didn't come out of the door. They literally just slide in here like that, so that's now ready. So yes, let's go and get our new tweeter into this. Right, getting the tweeter out of this like housing thing should be easier than for the rear doors. So essentially there's like these much larger sort of plastic clips which we can quite easily get at with our fingers. So we just essentially need to loosen those a bit, pull it towards us, and out it pops. Alright, I've gone ahead and connected the plug onto the wires of the tweeter. Once again, the one that has this extra thing in line that's surrounded by this heat shrink, that is what is going into the positive side, and then obviously the other one into the negative side, just pushing on. Happy days, good to go. So now we can get the new tweeter into this housing. So it's a similar story to the rear, but it's probably a bit easier because there are just 1, 2, 3 clips. There we go. Okay, next thing to remove is very similar to in the rear. There's this little like plastic cover that is covering one of our little screws. There we go, that just pops off. Next up, we need to remove our door spears. You want to pry in at the top, sort of ping it towards you, and then there is a little like heel that goes into the door, so don't bring it entirely towards you, kind of bring it out at the top and then forward. Now this should pop up and out. There we go. And then there's just an electrical connection for the switch there, very similar to the rear. So we just push in the little tab and that pops out. Next we have this sort of like little red reflector thing. So this slides off that way. Okay, then the last little bit of plastic paneling that we need to remove is this bit here right on the end of the top of the door. So yeah, it's actually coming off reasonably easy. There we go. So in doing all that, then we've revealed all of the screws that we need to remove. So one here, there are 2 here, so 1 and 2. Then there's the one that's in there and the one in there. So they are all the same T25 Torx that we used before, so let's go ahead and remove them all. Okay, now we're ready to do the actual removal of the door card. It's going to be once again quite similar to the rear. Obviously it's a little bit bigger and slightly different configuration. Obviously we also have the tweeter disconnected over here already, which is cool. But then yeah, once we pop off, there will be obviously this to do and everything like that. So pretty similar to before. We just need to get in here and start yanking. there was the electrical connection in this big sort of green bit, which was this. It was a similar thing like a lot of electrical connections on this car. You know, you push a little tab and you pull. There was then a little electrical connection in the bottom here, just of the latch, just right there in the middle, which was this little white thing. No little like thing to press, you just sort of pull that out, and that is for the ambient lighting that is on the front. So yeah, other than that, pretty much the same thing, and we are out. Now I do notice one of my big white clips is in the door. I'll probably use a trim tool to get that out and put that back in here into the door card before we do the reinstallation. But yeah, for now we can get rid of this. Okay then, the speaker itself, exactly the same connection as in the rear. So we want to get this up and out of there. There we go, and then we can go and grab our little socket and get the speaker out. So there we go, I've got the Dynamat all in place on this front door. So I've got my sheet of Extreme that I cut in half, again right behind where the speaker goes, and then around here where you can't really see, as well as like way up in here, in various stages, as well as underneath here. Just using like plenty, but not like going too crazy. I did have to take a little bit of a strip of the Dynamat from a spare sheet that I had, just to get every bit that I wanted covered. So that is something to bear in mind. Obviously the front doors are a little bit bigger than the rears, so yeah, I'm happy with that. So now we can get the speaker in. Okay, nice. All right, and then again getting our connection in, which is nice and stiff, and we do need to push that little center bit in. Okay, looking good. Now we are ready to get the door card back on. Okay, next up is getting the tweeter back in. So obviously we connect up the plug. Nice reassuring click. Now the potential thing about this is having this extra bit of wiring coming out here, as opposed to the stock setup where everything's sort of connected into a little thing on the rear. We're gonna have to kind of push the curl of the wire down into this space right here. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. Yeah, there's actually plenty of space in there, so that's all good. Just get everything aligned up. In particular, the two white clips that were here, get them pushed in. Okay, that looks good. So now we can get our little cover back. Nice. Okay, now we'll get some more of our little plastic bits in place. So we'll start off with this bit at the edge of the door. So the bottom of it is like a little hook, so it kind of goes in, and then you just give it a wee push. It's a reflector. So we'll just slide it in from the side. Door release cap. Just line it up. It just drops right into place. Okay, then we have our like handle and switch assembly, which of course we need to plug in. Only goes in one way. Okay, once we've got that electrical connection in, this little sort of prongy thing needs to be lined up in there, and then just line the rest of it up and push downwards. It just pops right into place like that. And then the last piece of the puzzle is our door spear. So all we have to do with that is, again, start with the sort of little hook bit going in here, and then just clip the clips in direct, sort of pushing straight in at it. Easy. Well, there we go then, that is this door done. So I can move on and do the exact same on the other door, and once I do that, it will be installation complete. Alright, here we are then in the... Switch that off to something else pretty quickly. because obviously I can't play too much of any particular song or radio station or whatever because I will get busted for copyright. But let's see, if I switch to something else, let's go for Radio 1.
Should we hear what Dean chose?
Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. I'll just turn that off for now then. So what I am experiencing then is much better bass response. Not just bass response, but like just the whole frequency range just seems a lot better. Like I would say like a lot less like empty, flat and tinny that the stock speaker setup sounds like. So that is awesome. That's exactly what I was going for. I do need to go out and just obviously listen to more music, more radio, more whatever, and just, you know, do a long-term comparison. But yeah, initial impressions are very positive. I would say it's a very worthwhile upgrade and I am very happy with it. So hope you like that too, and with that I will leave it there. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do like, share and subscribe for more content to come very soon. Thank you once again. Goodbye.